we are exploring a distinction between studying religion and doing philosophy of religion. Now, I do philosophy of religion, so that's what we're going to focus on here. And first of all, though, if you're going to do philosophy of anything, it would help if we had a definition of that subject or discipline or area or whatever it is you're investigating. So this question, what is religion, is relevant. Unfortunately, it's very challenging to define. And experts in religion, people in religious studies, don't have an agreed upon definition similar to philosophy. Philosophy is also very difficult to define, and there's no accepted definition across the board. So suggestions might include beliefs related to the supernatural, right? That seems to be something to do with religion. But certainly when you think about Harry Potter, or is that, suppose you believed that Harry Potter was real. Is that a religion that you were following? It doesn't seem so. You could say religion includes practices engaged as an acknowledgement of the transcendent. So that's certainly one way of putting what it is to practice religion. But it seems like things like the Declaration of Independence, which acknowledges the transcendent, is not a religious document, and following it as a practice, it does not seem to be a religious activity. Religion might be conceived of as an attempt to get in contact with ultimate reality, right? And that makes sense. But that's kind of the definition, very similar to the definition I use for what metaphysics is. It's an attempt to get in contact with ultimate reality, and doing metaphysics isn't a religious activity, at least for the most part. And so certainly not using LSD as an attempt to get in contact with ultimate reality, or even the natural sciences. That's not a religious, these aren't religious practices. Religion can also be conceived as personal or practical beliefs in a higher power. But AA is typically not considered to be a religious group, and you don't have to hold to any particular religious doctrine to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous. So that doesn't seem to catch it either. Now, clearly, maybe it could be a combination of these four things. Maybe it is the collection of these four things. That would be a good way of thinking about religion. But again, it's hard to define. What I want to do now, though, is look at a definition that some people have provided. And I have the book that I'm getting this from here in the bottom. And they say that religion is constituted by a set of beliefs, actions, and experiences, both personal and collective, organized around a concept of an ultimate reality, note the caps there, that inspires or requires devotion, worship, or a focused life orientation. Well, we've got a lot in there, right? We have the ultimate reality. We have the idea of devotion or worship. We have not only beliefs, but actions and experiences. We have it not only being personal, but involving other people in the process. Of course, this definition is not perfect either. But let's move on to think about what philosophy of religion is. Even though we don't have a perfect definition of religion, we can still attempt to show what philosophy of religion is. And it's the attempt to analyze and critically evaluate religious beliefs. And we look at consistency, coherence, reasonableness. That is, how does it fit with what we know about the world? And so that's what we're doing when we do philosophy of religion. So it's not the direct study of religion. it's doing philosophy of religion. Let's compare and contrast that a little bit more. So religious studies is the discipline that focuses on religion. Philosophy is primarily concerned with religious beliefs. Religious studies does have concerns about religious beliefs, but they are also concerned about other things. So let's follow this through with philosophy of religion. When we do philosophy of religion, we're focusing on religious beliefs and we're using arguments, right? Focused arguments that follow the principles of logic, right? And that's very important for philosophers of religion. We're looking at the rationality of beliefs, and we're looking at the implications of beliefs. If these religious beliefs are true, then what follows? On the other hand, in contrast, religious studies is more concerned with things like the psychological aspects of practicing religion, the social, the cultural aspects of religion, and certainly the historical aspects of religion. So more related to the social sciences, but certainly also has traditions from the humanities as well. Now, I put theology at the bottom. I think technically it can be claimed by religious studies. And theologians generally are in the discipline of religious studies. But there are philosophers who do philosophical theology, and applying philosophical principles to the nature of God as traditionally conceived is somewhat of a form of doing theology, and philosophers do engage in that. So in our discourse here, we're primarily focusing on beliefs about God. So when I'm doing philosophy of religion, when I'm creating videos on philosophy of religion, the courses on philosophy of religion, primarily I'm focusing on beliefs about God as conceived in the three primary monotheistic Western religions, that of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And again, fleshing out the implications. Now, just to say the significance here and talk about the significance of, broadly speaking, if God exists, then it seems that that is extremely significant for how we would live our lives. If there really is a God as conceived by the monotheistic Western religions, then God created the universe. God is in control of the universe. God is present and personal even now. God knows about us. God has moral standards. God is the judge of our actions. And all of these things ought to be taken into account when you live your life. Now, on the other hand, if God does not exist, you don't have to worry about this thing. Certainly, you wouldn't have to worry about religious practices related to the three primary Western religions, so you could cut that out. You also have a different challenge of finding meaning and purpose in life, which generally people say things like meaning and purpose without God is being rational and loving other people. The theist who says that God exists says God is the source of rationality, the logos, and God is love. And so you really can't even have those two things unless God exists. Of course, there's room, or a lot of room, for dialogue about that. Let's think more about what religious beliefs would include. So generally speaking, and this would include non-Western religions as well, if you're talking about a religion, you have beliefs about the predicament of humans. Everyone has this sense that there's something wrong in the world, that humans don't interact appropriately with one another, that something is not the way it ought to be. That's our predicament. And then there are ways to solve the predicament. The religion includes steps or processes, or just how the predicament can be solved. So, for example, in Christianity, the predicament is sin that separates us from God. the way to solve the predicament is to have a perfect sacrifice that can overcome that bridge between humans and God and to wipe out the sin. Now, the third thing that religious beliefs include are a view of ultimate reality that gives purpose to our existence. And so, again, this is true for non-Western traditions and Western traditions as well. Religious beliefs also, again, focus in on the ultimate reality. That's what the you are. That can be approached or understood in a specific way. So, if you have an ultimate reality, how do you get to it? How do you understand it? Right? What's our relationship to it? That's a significant part of a religious belief system. And then how do we respond? How do we actually achieve salvation or liberation or ultimate fulfillment, whatever the religion might say is the ultimate solving of the predicament of humans. Now, there are personal aspects to a religion that philosophers of religion tend to overlook, broadly speaking. So these very personal aspects are largely neglected in philosophy of religion. Now, that's not true universally. There are some people concerned about this, but broadly, people who do philosophy of religion are focusing in on beliefs, and they're focusing in on specific kinds of beliefs and not really the personal aspects. But of course, religion involves much more than intellectual assent. So religion includes how you live your life, right? Besides just saying, yes, I believe that God exists, typically there's much more to a person who is a believer on how that affects their life, their emotions, and so on. So there is a personal commitment to the ultimate reality, and there's an endeavor to live in relationship to God in a certain way, or the ultimate reality, in a meaningful way. And so theists typically are part of a religious tradition. And so that affects how they live their daily life, whether they pray and how they pray and what sacred texts they might read and take to heart and try to live according to those things. So there are a lot of personal aspects that philosophy of religion just doesn't explore very much. And if you're taking a class on philosophy of religion, those are not really going to be emphasized in the class.